look back over Leinster's 3 matches over the Christmas period, look forward to our big game against Toulouse at the weekend, and discuss all the other rugby action. So boys, I suppose we have a good bit to get through. We had a mixed bag, I think, over Christmas. Mixed a bit of the usual Leinster performance against Ulster, and then beaten obviously down in Limerick, and came back from the death against Connacht.
Curate's egg, Clive. Curate's egg.
Well, the Connacht, if you go in order, the Connacht one was a miraculous escape where our bench came on and saved the day, and they just ran out of bodies, really. I mean, we were so lucky to get that. They were on top for most of the game. But Andrew Porter fella's quite good at barging over from.
He's quite
and
strong,
he just
isn't he?
like
His leg drive is just unbelievable.
It's just
so
like
it's just ridiculous.
you get 3 guys and go, right lads, whatever you are doing, I'm just going over to score a try. Do you do whatever the fuck you like, and I'll just go score.
But you mentioned it there, John. Like, it's the bench. The bench came on. You know, Irish standard players coming on. Cronin, all scoring. Cronin, Levy, Andrew Porter. You know what I mean? And that was the difference. And even in Connacht's match against Munster the other night, you know, they're missing about 5 of their players, 2 of which are Irish internationals, and then they go down into the lower reaches, and the players just aren't quite good enough.
Yeah, unfortunately, they're going really well though.
They are.
Yeah, no,
Their Andy Friend has them humming a bit.
If they'd beaten Munster, I mean, they would have obviously gone clear into second. But you know that's it. I mean, it's all about. I mean, the standards of a lot of the teams are not entirely dissimilar, but it's when you go below the first 15 that's when the differences appear, and that's why clubs like Leinster and indeed Munster are still a lot stronger than other clubs, because they just do have that depth.
Yeah, it's true. Well, you know, one thing I thought was great over the weekend was the crowds that were at the matches. There was just over 80,000 people went to the 6 matches between the 3 rounds of games.
It's pretty impressive.
And that's pretty, you know. And then there was even good crowds. Like, there was a sellouts in Glasgow. Welsh crowds were good. They're all up, quite a few in 5 figures territory. And there was 21,000 in Murrayfield for their derby. You know, so it's great to see the league getting bums on seats.
It was a good crowd. Actually, I thought there was good crowds in Italy as well, for their matches as well.
Yeah.
So
I see they put a roof on the other stand in Treviso.
yeah, they did eventually. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing. I mean, we always knew that. I mean, we did grow out of interprovincial rugby, all of us to a certain extent. Wales, interregional or interclub rugby. Scotland had the districts, and Italy had clubs anyway. So, you know, there is a tradition of going to see you beat the hell out of your neighbours. You know,
Always good.
Well, I suppose we can't not talk about the discipline down in Tobin. I mean, a lot has been said about it, but very unusual for Leinster to concede a yellow card, and we got the season's quota.
Yeah, well,
hopefully
that's them all out of the way.
we conceded 1 yellow in the league up until that point.
That's right, yeah. Hopefully that's them all out of the way. I mean, obviously they just got the pitch of the game just slightly wrong. They got the whole we're not taking a backward step just a bit too.
Yeah, they were a bit
too far, you know.
off.
Yeah,
So there must have been one hell of a cycle in the dressing room.
Yeah, well, also they had the team laden. Like, we haven't gone to Thomond Park fully loaded or close to fully loaded. Sexton hasn't played there since 2012, something like that. So, you know, that's kind of, and he set the tone as well very early in the game. We were on the sideline quite near where that incident happened, and where there was a big brawl right in front of us not too long after. So you could see the tempers were up, and Munster weren't taking a backward step either, but they were just staying on the right side of the law, generally more than we were anyway. And I suppose it comes from the captain down. It's just when your captain is doing that and you're going right.
There's been a lot of talk about this, and the narrative is that Sexton completely lost the head and was wandering around the pitch like a raving Visigoth.
I don't think anyone's saying that.
He wasn't. I mean, he was less than pleased, obviously, about the penalty reversal in the Wycherley incident. He was equally displeased that a similar incident, what he saw as a similar incident, wasn't punished, and the Conor Murray one. But apart from that, he didn't raise a peep during the yellow cards, or not a peep, but he wasn't argumentative during the yellow card to the red card, because they were what they were.
I thought the Fardy one was worse than the Murray one.
Yeah,
so if he got off of that,
but that's
it's very hard to stamp.
It's not. But what I'm saying, I'm talking about Sexton is like
Yeah.
it's not like the narrative is that Sexton was going around the place like a roaring berserker, and if you watch the game again, the reality doesn't really match the narrative.
And he pulled Carberry out of that fight actually that was on the sideline, but apparently he stood over him and said, "What are you doing in there?"
Yeah. Did he say down there or down here?
Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah, it's very hard. Like in Frank
the most annoying thing about, and it just shows. I mean, we like I said, one yellow card all season. We go down, we do lose the head slightly as a team, and our discipline goes in the first, and in the second half we come back and we're much more disciplined, and we're by far the better team
because somebody obviously sat them down.
And said, "Calm down, lads."
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if it wasn't for an intercept try, we probably would have been in there, and we would have been down 2 points behind, and it was anyone's game.
Saxon only played 60 minutes.
That's true.
We played 56 minutes with 14 men, and we played 8 minutes or 6 minutes with 13 men.
Mm-hmm.
And we were, until Keith Earls got his intercept try, we were 7 points behind, was it?
Yeah.
9 points behind at that juncture.
Yeah.
And Sexton came off after 60. So if you've got the best player in the world only playing 3/4
and
of
his
the
replacement
game,
through the intercept.
Yeah.
Well, he's only a young kid, you know.
No,
what I mean?
not
I mean, there has been
but
criticism of McGann this season in that his team doesn't really.
McGann?
McGann, sorry, not McGann. Van Gran, sorry, Van Gran. Well, there's probably been criticism of McGann this season because they never let it go. But there's been criticism of Van Gran this season that his team has problems breaking down the opposition. And we saw it again actually on Stephen's Day, or on the 29th. They weren't. I mean, they scored 2 tries against, one of which was an intercept, against a team that was down 14 players and sometimes 13 for over an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's not going to do. Yeah. That's not going to do you anything at the business end of the season.
And if you watch the Munster Connacht match at the weekend, many times the Connacht make clear line breaks. They must have made 6, 7, 8 of them. I don't know, but I'd be concerned. Like, they're kind of papered over the cracks as, and I think they could come up for a bit of a fall now.
Well, it'll be interesting to see.
They've 2 very hard matches. We're going to jump way ahead by saying this, but they've 2 very hard matches coming in the Champions Cup, which we may get to talk about later.
Yeah.
So we'll find out one way or another.
Yeah.
Hopefully they rise to the occasion like Munster inevitably do.
The irksome thing about that Munster game is how we played for those 40 minutes. Because if we played the first 40 minutes like we played the second 40 minutes, we would have won on the counter.
It is a bit of a blemish on the season, like to.
Yeah,
I mean, it
doesn't do them any harm to get a little reminder.
Well,
every
maybe
now and
not.
That's
one
thing.
We're so far ahead though in the table. It's ridiculous. I mean, we're 54 points. Edinburgh, who are 35, so they're 19 points behind us.
There's 2 points between the next 4 teams, so who's second and third is anybody's guess.
Exactly. But there was some big winners and losers over Christmas. Yeah. Like winners, I think, were Edinburgh. They won all 3 from 3.
Yeah.
They moved up into second. Also, winners were Treviso. They won 3 from 3. Now, admittedly, 2 of their matches are against Ebre, so might be a bit. But they did beat Glasgow at the weekend.
Very impressively.
And in Glasgow,
Joy Neville reffing.
That's right, yeah. And the losers then were Glasgow. They lost all 3 of their matches, and of course Scarlets in our conference, they lost 2 of their 3 games.
I Scarlets have 2 problems at the moment. They're running out of players, and alarming rate. I mean, they had to play Ken Owens at number 8.
Well, they did play him at 8 anyway, whether they had to or not.
Well, they did, but they are down players.
Yeah.
And the other thing, and I think the same goes for Glasgow, is if you don't evolve your game enough year on year, you're moving backwards. It's not enough anymore. It was never enough to stand still, because then you were going backwards. But now if you don't move forward enough, you're going backwards. And I think that's what's happened to Scarlets to a certain extent. I don't know if they've evolved their game enough from where they were 2 years ago.
Yeah, but if you look at the players that left in the season, like, I mean, you see how well Tyke Byrne is playing for Munster. There's the guy, Barkley moved back up to Glasgow, was it?
He's Edinburgh. He was Glasgow.
Yeah, sorry, he's gone back to Edinburgh. Or he's gone to Edinburgh.
But they did also sign Blade Thompson.
Okay, but he's been out injured.
Yeah, he's been injured.
So,
and they're missing Cubby Boy. They're missing a collateral players,
They are missing players, but I still think that there's an element of that they haven't.
Shingler hasn't been played all year.
They haven't quite moved forward enough, and is there an element that Pivac is off now?
Oh, totally. I think that's a factor. Yeah.
You know, I don't say I'm not saying I don't want to use about a coach like Wayne Pivac and a bunch of players like Scarlett that he's a lame duck coach, but there is an element where you kind of.
And he will be their national coach, so they can't completely switch off.
There is an element where you kind of do switch off. You know, I mean, I think we can see that.
Perhaps, have to agree with you there.
And of course, the other loser of the Christmas period was Jackman. He got the Shepherd's Hook in Dragons, which I thought seemed a bit, you know, like they're coming from a very low base. And I know his results have been pretty diabolic, but
they don't have a lot of patience, and they don't like the Irish too much as it is. And they have 2 Irish coaches out of 4 regions. I think that was just a bit too much to stomach for a lot of them.
Possibly so.
They wanted it out, you know.
But like, I think he might have to reassess what he wants to do. Whether he's going to become back as a divisional coach, you know, as a whether he goes back to being a defence coach or an attack coach, because you know he's had 2 opportunities now as head coach, and neither of them have ended well.
No, they've ended rather quickly, all right, which is a pity because he's a good bloke.
Yeah,
very nice fella. And obviously his coaching is maybe he's not head coach ready.
Yeah, maybe he might be a guy who's better suited as a unit coach rather than a head coach.
He kind of got that jump up, didn't he, very quickly in Grenoble? He only had a couple of seasons as a unit coach, and then he was promoted very quickly. And maybe, you know, look at O'Gara, he's taken his time and he's far more high profile than Jackman ever was, and yet he's still biding his time and just getting as much experience and not shooting his bolt just yet.
As regards, I
agree entirely about the way O'Gara's managing things. Yeah, absolutely.
As regards the rest of the league and us being 19 points clear, all the other teams have to play each other. Apart from Ulster and Scarlets, who've played each other twice already, all the rest of the teams, Edinburgh have to play all the other 3, and Treviso have to play all 4. Edinburgh and Treviso have to play all their 3 rivals. Ulster have to play Edinburgh and Treviso, and Scarlets have to play Edinburgh and Treviso. They can't all. One team isn't going to win all those games, so they're going to take points off each other somewhere. And us being 20, like there's only a possible 40 points left, believe it or not, in the league. If you win all your matches with a bonus point, we're 19 ahead. We win 4 games in the rest of the season, we're uncatchable.
I think you have to say we're pretty much uncatchable as it is, though.
Well, like, we've got...
But I think John means the difference between in reality and mathematically.
Yeah.
Yeah, mathematically we could be uncatchable by the end of the Six Nations if things go well for us. You know, if we beat the Scarlets, it's kind of...
But you think, like, you got to think they're going to top the pool, right? And then they're going to have one home semi-final. So they really only have to worry about that semi-final, and they're into the... I know it's putting the cart before the horse, but like... They can now continue and just rest their internationals, rest their main
do whatever they
players.
need,
Because I'd suggest they'd manage them rather than rest them, because you know the way I always say that you can't turn form on and off like a tap. You know, you do have to keep guys bubbling.
No, that's fair enough. But like those frontline players, the Sextons and the Toners, I know they're injured, but even the Henshaw's coming back. Those guys are going to have enough big games to concentrate on. There's no need for Leinster to play them,
to rally them
against. You know, Edinburgh in April.
Well, there's certainly no need to flog them anyway. They can be managed, and that goes back to what we were saying about squad depth. You know, if you have the squad depth that Leinster are developing, I mean, we've got another tranche of players coming through.
Like
now.
You look at the performance over the last couple of weeks of Conor O'Brien.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. He's come from nowhere. I heard an interview with him after the post match.
Saw that actually.
And in the press conference, and he said, "God, if you'd have told me this,
I would have played 3 Interpros,
you know, even at the start of the season, and yet somehow he just looked. Admittedly, he's playing against a pretty weak Ulster side, but he looks so confident and comfortable playing. Like he was by far the best player on the pitch.
Well, I have a question from Brian Hughes, and he asked this a month ago. He questions the stance: how impressive has Conor O'Brien been on his limited time so far this season, possibly ahead of Reid with Henshaw injured?
I think Noel Reid's been excellent this season.
I think Noel Reid, I mean, it's actually a weird one, because you would have thought, oh yeah, absolutely Conor O'Brien. But Noel Reid's been really, really good as well. So I suppose we'll know by Wednesday what the coaches think about it if they bring him into the European squad.
Yeah.
Because that's obviously the day.
Well, Lancaster, I watched them today say that they are bringing him into the.
Well, good.
Well,
So-
I suppose with Tamani injured now, he's out for.
Also, I think Barry Daly might get in.
Yeah, I think they might promote Barry Daly as well. Yeah.
I thought Conor O'Brien mightn't because Henshaw was coming fit, but I think Barry Daly is more necessary with
The Welsh newspaper.
With the Welsh newspaper, with what's his name out, Lowe out for this game.
Yeah.
That you might need Barry Daly for this game, against Toulouse, even for the 23 jersey.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean,
Dave Carney injured, Fergus McFadden injured.
He's coming back though, isn't he?
I don't think. Well, yeah, he's not. He won't
I
be
saw a
back this
picture of him
weekend.
sprinting. So, yeah,
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
James
Tamani,
Lowe
obviously.
out, Tamani out. That's 4 possible back 3 players gone.
Yeah.
So you're left with Adam Byrne, and then you're moving a centre like O'Loughlin.
You're chomping
obviously
at the bit
got-
to talk Champions Cup.
You've
aren't
obviously
you?
got Larmer. I am actually, yeah. You've obviously got Larmer there, but
But before we do that,
But
we're going to
before
look at
we
the
do that-
tries from last match.
sorry for jumping ahead, Jason.
We'll look at the tries before, just from the Ulster game.
Yeah, what I was thinking looking at this try was exactly what I said about what's his name, Porter. So right, Sean O'Brien gets the ball and goes, right lads, you do whatever you like, I'm just scoring a try here. And it was he had a little bit to do when he got the ball as well. On both
Nugget.
occasions, yeah.
Oh yeah.
That was a great
I was very impressed
how
with Seth
he
Rose.
offloaded to
on-
Porter. There we
at
go.
the weekend.
Boom, boom, and in. Like, okay, they weren't the most committed tacklers you ever saw in your
Well, they're both
life.
quite little.
But yeah, and the
I
same
mean,
for the
Lowry's
next
only a
try.
little guy, and he's now half playing out of position as well. So
And Sean Cronin togs out very big, as they say.
But you just knew it's with, what was it, 6 minutes gone?
Yeah,
That there was
Bang,
could be
bang.
a bit of a score line coming up.
yeah. He's so explosive.
he's great. He's like
Really so explosive.
he's like a cannonball running at some skittles.
But this one is explosive.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
he had a bit more to do here.
Yeah, again,
Decent hands from
again,
Mick Kearney again.
Kearney
Yeah.
and both the second rows I thought were exceptional.
Yeah.
I'm really coming around to the idea. I wasn't a huge fan of Ross Maloney's, but I tell you, this
I would
season
have had him
been
above
excellent.
Mick Kearney.
Oh yeah, so would I.
Nice break from, and look at that offload from the ground from Conor O'Brien, and off he goes. Boom, 2 other guys. Let's bounce them off
In
again.
fairness, the 2 smallest players on the pitch.
They're little guys, but it's still a case of try your best, lads. I'm just going over the line here while you think about it.
He does score an awful lot of tries. I mean, he always has in his career. I mean, he came to prominence scoring tries with Shannon,
Yeah.
and he just hasn't stopped. Like,
That set the tone, those 2 tries, I think. They did come back and score off them all.
there's
Don't know if you have that one.
an angle from behind that shows that he kind of changes his run, his line of running a little
be
bit
it
just
here.
to make sure just to make sure he hits them on his terms. You know.
Yeah. Again, they do a lot of that work, I think, in training about the how you hit a guy and what footwork you put on before you go into contact and all
They
that.
had the cheek to score against us,
Yeah, and
which
this
only annoyed
made
us.
us angry. Yeah, that was Rob Kearney knocking it back
Of
off the
course.
kick-off. And then this man, 1, 2, 3, 4, and sidestep the 5th.
There's always a good sidestep if somebody ends up falling over.
Well, that's terrible tackling, isn't
Now,
it?
Oh, it's
the
dreadful.
tackling was
There was
appalling.
no tackling.
No,
in fairness.
no.
It was super rugby.
It was
bad.
of the optional variety.
Yeah,
I saw your man McFarland, the Ulster coach, mentioned before the match Leinster had an average of 42 points at home this season.
Jeez. So we didn't even make
we
the
didn't
average.
even make the
Disgraceful.
average. Yeah, he looks to the manner born, doesn't he? And I don't know if you saw the interview, Dave, but he's real kind of nervous, and it's
Yeah,
his first
yeah.
interview, and
The only thing I'd say is, and you're right, it is dreadful tackling. But it's surprising, on really good players, it's surprising how many times dreadful tackles are made on them. You know what I mean? Because they
There's a
tend
bit
to
of that.
move, and they kind of control the way the players come at them.
it was a nice little
But it
step.
just looked
Yeah.
that Ulster weren't committed, and that was only from the kick off, wasn't it? That was only
Yeah,
early enough
literally.
in the first half.
So
like they just scored. They kind of got back within 7 points.
I was really disappointed with Ulster. Really, really disappointed.
kind of killed the game after that try. Really, that was it, gone. And then bonus point before half time.
But like we regularly send a weak, what we would perceive as a weakened side, but they don't play like they're the B's or the C's.
You see, that's the thing. There's a difference between what we consider a weakened side, but they consider, in terms of like our weaker players are better than their weaker players.
There's a
fair
mentality
enough, but-
issue, though. I
Yeah.
think with them, there has to be. You can't like. This was one of those. Let it out to the backs. Get away from the backs. We're scoring it here. But the backs can score
the
it.
first try we scored was scored off 20 odd phases.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of controlling the ball. If you control the ball,
I think this is Andrew Porter again, isn't it?
yeah.
But our defence, we just didn't give them an inch.
No, they were dreadful.
But they didn't get an inch, Dave.
No.
We were putting 2 men into the tackle and driving them back, and they'd go through 5 or 6 phases, and then they just have to kick the ball because they couldn't make any yardage.
It was a strange ball. It was a strange game for Scott Penny. Because normally a back row likes to be able to get over the ball and stuff like that. It was a 7, and he didn't have to do that because we weren't interested in the ball at all. We just stopped the man and kept sending him backwards and backwards and backwards. Didn't have to take any risks.
It was very noticeable in the ground that when they tackled us, we were going through them. When we tackled them, they were stopped
We were
on the
going
gain line. Yeah.
But
And there he goes, over from a yard.
If you don't have to take a risk trying to play the ball, because the referee could give a penalty or anything for hands, you never know with a ref. So if you can just keep knocking them back, then you don't have to contest the ball.
Yeah, but it must be so frustrating for them because they were throwing the kitchen sink at it.
Yeah.
And they
Getting
were
nowhere.
making 0 yards,
Yeah.
and eventually they just had to shovel it back to the out half to boot the ball away after
2 players
7 or
there
8 phases.
on Porter with a third one coming in behind.
Yeah, but it's his leg drive. I mean, if you watch that, he gets really low and then drives up there. Watch there.
They both stopped
there,
him,
look.
and he just goes, "No, sorry,"
His leg and lower back strength power must be just
off the charts.
yeah.
I can only imagine what he's benching and squatting in the gym.
I don't.
I'd say Andy Crawford would probably know.
Yeah, he probably would.
He
Yeah.
knows a lot about these things.
About those Andrews boys.
Yeah.
I thought he had a great game. That Scott Penny.
Yeah.
He's just looks so confident and so.
He's another one who's to the manner born. So yes.
And of course,
Well,
your man was robbed with the penalty try there. Not this
that's
one.
the
The
next
last
Dowling.
one, yeah, Dowling. He actually scored,
How are
and
we
then he
going to
got
keep
a
all these
penalty try.
guys? How are we going to keep them happy?
Medals.
But how are you going to keep Scott Penny? Like, he wants to play. And obviously
does.
there's a huge waiting list in front of him. So at some point he's going to say, no, I'm ambitious. I want to start playing first team rugby.
All you can do is your best to hold on to the ones you want to keep.
Yeah.
And if they
It's
go,
gonna
they
be
go.
hard, though.
Okay, it is, but it's a balancing act,
But
trying to keep them all happy.
he's. If you look at it, if you say to him, I mean, you're 19 years of age, old, and you're already getting starts in the Pro 12.
Yeah.
There is the position you play in. There's other guys there, yes, but there is an injury overhead. And you're getting lots of game time because of that. That's not going to change. That's going to be the same year on year. And as you get better and better, you become the guy that gets to be rested during the international weekends because you're away with the Irish squad.
Yeah.
So I mean, and then what you also say is, I mean, that'll prolong your career.
There he goes.
You might get another 4 or 5 years out of your career.
Yeah.
Which is another 4 or 5 years worth of earning money.
But you see, like, the Connacht Centre,
Tom Daly.
Tom Daly.
Which one now?
No, sorry.
Farrell.
Farrell. Like, Farrell was a Leinster guy.
They
They let him go.
Looked very nice.
He went
the other
off
night.
to Bedford, was it?
Didn't
I
sound right,
think it
but
was okay. He
Rotherham,
went
was it?
off
They all
maybe
got the
Rotherham.
Rotherham.
Okay, but he went off somewhere in the Championship in England, and then he was picked up by Connacht, and but do you know what I mean? Like, he's obviously saw that the opportunity for him in Leinster mightn't have been very good, or mightn't have been very.
You have to.
Mightn't have much of an opportunity. Maybe
wasn't
Leinster
given
thought,
any.
okay, but maybe Leinster looked at him and said, well, we don't have room for him here because look at all of our list of centres that we already have. And then he, has to make a career for himself, and he's picked up and he gets a gig in Connacht, and they're talking. They're talking that he might possibly be voted for Six Nations. Yeah.
The other thing you have to look at when you're a player in that position is actually age. If you're, with say Tom Farrell, and the guys who are ahead of you are not only the Leinster incumbents but they're the Irish incumbents, and maybe there's only a year or two between you in age. you know, you're not going to get into the position through natural wastage.
Yeah.
And then you look at that, and there's guys behind you who have an advantage because they're 2 or 3 years younger, so they're going to have that bit more
development time.
So you kind of get caught in a squeeze like Felix Jones did.
Yeah, or
and
Kieran Lewis back.
Or Kieran Lewis. Kieran
10,
Lewis actually,
15
I think,
years
stayed
ago,
too
maybe.
long.
Yeah.
For the benefit of his own career. I mean, it was great to have him in Leicester because he was a quality operator. But you look at somebody like, say, Felix Jones. Felix Jones realised he was getting caught in a squeeze because he had Rob Kearney ahead of him and Gervin Dempsey ahead of him, who were the Irish incumbents. You know, there wasn't
Luke Fitzgerald too.
Luke Fitzgerald and Dave Kearney behind him, and there wasn't a huge age difference between himself and Rob and himself and Dave behind him. So he was kind of getting caught in a squeeze, and I actually think Felix Jones made the absolute right decision for his career to move away to Munster.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just a matter of the number of players ahead in you, the number of players. It's where you are in terms of the natural wastage point in those players. And Tom Farrell was at a point where, and I think Tom Daly as well to a certain extent, was at a point where they kind of had to go, yeah, okay, if I want opportunities, I'm not going to get them because the guys get old. I'm going to have to manufacture them for myself. But at least they're staying in the system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but there's, opportunities there in Connacht for them now, and they're, like Connacht are playing a great brand of rugby. They're a lot different than Connacht were 10 years ago, where they were continually, bottom of the league and winning 3 games a season. Like, this is a good Connacht side.
There's 7 points between the top 4 in that side of the conference, with Glasgow going. Glasgow were runaway leaders for a while, and now they're behind Munster.
Yeah.
And Connacht are not too far behind Glasgow.
And if Connacht had beaten Munster at the weekend, they would have, I think, moved up to 2nd place.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all very nip and tuck still in that.
Oh yeah, it's all to play for Clive.
It is.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving forward and looking at the Champions Cup next weekend. So we play Toulouse, our old nemesis. We've played them 10 times before. We've only beat them 4 times, lost 6.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they are the big dogs in Europe still, to a certain extent.
And they're coming back. They're 2nd in the top 14.
Yeah.
They've got the same record as Clermont. They've won, I think what is it? I think they've won 10 of their 14 games, whereas they're 3 points behind Clermont because of bonus points. But they're playing some good rugby. You saw the way they celebrated over in Toulouse when they beat us.
Yeah.
Almost like we're back in the big time.
Yeah, and they are.
And they are back, and it's interesting how they got back.
Playing the rugby they used to play.
But developing the players they used to develop. Yeah. They went through a phase where that great Toulouse team that won those European Cups, and it kind of evolved but it came to an end. And they just attempted to buy in replacements. They went Luke McAllister, and they went down that route, and it didn't work for them. Mm-hmm. And what they have now are the sons of the guys who played in those great teams, but they've come up through the Toulouse system or systems similar to it. Yeah. So there's an organic growth to that team.
But you look at the great teams. Leinster did it. Munster kind of did it. They were all, a lot of them were local kids that were winning in the noughties. Leicester, Sarries, Toulouse. Like, the exception, the outlier was Toulon.
Yeah.
And look where they are now. Because all those guys, all those superstars are now hitting 40.
Yeah.
And they've no one coming in behind them.
Yeah, well, they used to time their players they used to buy them in with 2-3 years left on their career.
Yeah.
Because they had huge experience.
Oh,
but
yeah, I mean, they were a who's who of world rugby.
Yeah, but the downside of that is you have to keep throwing the money at it and keep...
Because every 2 years you have to change your team. Yeah. And in a way, that Toulouse team that won those tournaments, I mean, they were exemplary professionals. They were there for the money, yes, but they gave value for money.
And they also bought in to...
Yeah, that's what I was saying. They gave value for money. Guys like Johnny Wilkinson and Joan Smith, those guys... Mm-hmm. You could never ever accuse, like we saw them when we played over in Toulouse in the not so much in the semi-final but in the quarter-final.
When we were in Toulouse,
you saw Toulon.
Toulon. You saw how
never beaten Toulon.
You saw how much it meant to the community.
Yeah,
like I remember speaking to some guy in a pub, and a man was saying to me, he says, like, we're not the Côte d'Azur. We don't have the yachts and the casinos or any of this. We've got 3 things. We have the sea, we have the navy, and we have the rugby team. That's it.
I think it was the Sun, the Navy, and the rugby team. But
I mean, Toulon is an example where if you get the right players in, but it's very hard to get 10 right players at the right time. I mean, and Toulon have shown that it's very hit and miss, and they got it at one period, but they haven't managed before, and they didn't manage it since. So It is difficult. Whereas Toulouse have gone back to what they were. Now maybe because Toulouse had always been famed for their academy, so maybe there was just a hole in it for a 4 or 5 year period before these guys came through. But they're back where they used to be, certainly in terms of the
maybe they saw,
and the rugby they play as
they
well.
might have seen the blueprint and saw what Toulon were doing and thought, well, maybe we've got to go down this road.
Yeah.
And it didn't work for them, and maybe they didn't have the cash to try to compete with them. And said, well,
they've shitloads of cash.
But maybe they don't have the same amount of cash as.
They might have shitloads of cash, but Toulouse spend a lot of it on Toulouse. You know, Toulouse wouldn't be a club where there's enough. I mean, and neither are Toulon to a certain extent, because Bouchelad is losing a fortune in that club, and he's quite happy to do so because he loves it so much. But Toulouse is, for want of almost a cooperative. In terms of in that French rugby cooperative sense, or that European rugby or sports kind of multi-sports.
It's not exactly communism down there.
No, I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it is, but
it's not like the Limerick Soviet or anything.
No. But the club exists. The club's business activities exist to make money, so they can have business activities, if you know what I mean. Or the club can continue to exist. They're not there making huge amounts of money and investing in offshore funds.
That's true.
You know, the money is going back into the club. So whilst they might be making lots of money, they're also spending lots of money, because things like academies don't come cheap.
That's true.
A good academy doesn't come cheap. As I mean, it took us a while to get ours set up, and it wasn't cheap. We needed a good gift from out in UCD and stuff like that to have the facilities the way we wanted. But Toulouse, and more importantly, Toulouse are playing Toulouse rugby.
Yeah.
I mean, during if you like what I have perhaps unfairly called the McAllister years, they didn't look like Toulouse.
No, they were playing Bosch rugby.
Yeah, I mean, Toulouse
they
were always a joy.
They won the top
watch.
14 for the last time in 2012. I remember watching the final, and it was just, I think it was 6-3 or 9-6 or something. They won. It was an awful game, and they did that for a few years where it was just Bosch.
Yeah.
No flair, no proper Toulouse, and I think Guy Novez was still there at the time. It was just towards the end of his, and then after he moved on. Mm-hmm. So it's great to see them playing. I just wish they'd hold it off until after next week.
If they wouldn't mind going back to the Bosch just for a week.
Just for a week.
Well, we'll see.
Well, the other thing is, you said it there, Dave. Toulouse have beaten us 6 times, and we've beaten them 4 times. We've only beaten them once down there, famously in a quarter final. However, 2 of the times are in the last millennium, which I wouldn't say they don't count, but we were a very different team. Absolutely. And they were on top of the world. They were professional before professional rugby came in. Yeah. So in this millennium, it's 4-all. So
that's probably more a fairer reflection.
It'd be nice.
That's not true to say, John. Rob Andrew went there because of his interest in aerospace technology and business.
Well, whatever. Well, there's not many teams like Bath. We've come up. Another thing I noticed was we've come up with 3 teams that Leicester have played us 11 times, and I think we're 6-5 against them. Bath, that time we just played them there was the 11th time, and we're 9-2 against Bath. This will be the 11th time we've played Toulouse, and okay, we can't get ahead of them, but we can certainly get ahead of them this millennium. And then the following week, if you include the Challenge Cup quarter final we played, that would be the 11th time we've played Wasps, and we're ahead of them as well. I think we won draw and mostly wins.
You can tell how often we play Toulouse by the amount of Toulouse merchandise I have upstairs in my wardrobe. Huge. I mean, just you go over there and you go into that shop, the Toulouse department store, and you can't stop buying stuff because it's all really good stuff.
You can't stop.
Well, I can't stop buying stuff. I mean, like obviously Leinster stuff, and I have a lot of Stade Francais stuff, but I've also got a huge amount of Toulouse stuff, which tells you how often we played them.
Fair enough. Well, it's funny, like Munster, for example, played Cast 16 times in Europe. 16 times.
Speaking of which, I actually saw a picture of you in a Munster jersey recently.
Wow.
Really?
We'll talk about that later.
Jesus. Was that the time I was drugged and kidnapped?
Well, possibly, I'm not sure.
Or as I call it, my weekend in Cork.
So there's rumours that Sexton and Toner are out. Well, that they're 50-50. I don't know, but like if you think that they didn't play, Ross Byrne was on the bench. He didn't come on last weekend.
Precautionary.
But maybe they didn't want him risked at all.
Yeah.
If Sexton is,
I have no doubt about that. But I'd say, I mean, we're in. It's the biggest game of the group.
Yeah.
And it's phony war stuff up until teams are named.
Yeah, for sure.
I saw I only saw it today.
But like, sorry to interrupt you, John.
All right.
But like, Lancaster doesn't play silly buggers. He's not that kind
No,
of
he's
man. Like,
generally a straight bat.
it was him that said it at the press conference. You know, it's not like it was coming from a press release that.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I saw it today, and I think it was what's your man that went to Blackrock College, the journalist that people slag off.
1F.
You'll have to narrow it down. A journalist, a journalist that people slag off. Hold on, come on.
The name isn't coming to me, but
or no, sorry, somebody from Blackrock
everybody
College
hates
that
him.
people slowed.
Dave.
Everybody hates somebody from Blackrock College. Are you talking about Rory O'Connor?
No.
Dave. The Indo guy?
Anyway, it doesn't
Keane
matter.
Tracy.
Right? No,
Gavin Cummesky.
that's the lad.
Ah, right. Yeah.
He was asking Sexton, was he injured when he came out? It was a bit of a. It was a.
Sorry.
It was a dodgy press conference. Sexto had the old dodgy head on him where he was just kind of glaring out at everybody, and Cummesky wasn't helping him by asking him all these silly questions. One of which was, "Yeah, see, you put ice on your leg when you came off there. Was that kind of? Are you hurt? Like, are you injured?" And Sexton was not impressed, and he looked at Leo, and the two of them went, "Well, no, it was planned that Kieran Frawley would come on at 60 minutes. Like, that was our plan all along." And you know whether it wasn't or whether it was or wasn't.
They weren't letting anything.
But they weren't letting anything out. So I'd say Sexton will play unless he's on one. Even if he is on one leg, if he's on 1.6 legs.
Lancaster mightn't be a fan of the City Buggers. The head coach grew up and learnt his trade in the home of City Buggers. In fairness,
yeah,
you know
that's true. So you just don't know till you see the team name, and even then, you just don't know.
Mm-hmm. Again, another rumour knocking around is Henshaw's back a bit earlier than expected. Now
that's not a rumour.
Oh no, but I don't think that he's going to be fit for this week.
Week too soon.
But he is ahead of schedule. He's ahead of schedule.
Yeah, well, we'll have him for the Six Nations anyway, which is a good thing.
Should we know when we see the teams?
Yeah,
it's going to be.
Well, one man who definitely won't be playing is James Lowe.
No,
we never really spoke about his red card.
Stone Cold Red. Under the laws, totally Stone Cold Red.
I mean, you can argue whether the law is right or wrong. Okay, that's another discussion, and you can argue for a black card plus patent pending, which I think people are beginning to think might be the worst idea. But under the laws, that was a red card, and the ref was right to set him off. I mean, I think the ref got pretty much all the big decisions, and pretty much most of the decisions right. Now, there's a certain amount of chatter about Frank Murphy being a former Munster player and all this.
I think he handled it very well,
and I thought he played. I thought he refereed the game well. I mean,
the only thing I would fault him on is, I think that he got caught in a trap when he didn't card Fardy, that he couldn't card Conor Murray, and because of that, he couldn't clamp down on the discipline early enough to really get a grip of the game. But he did. He pulled it back.
It is bad optics. I mean, Frank Murphy had a good game. He refereed the game well, but from an optics point of view, it's not great.
That he's a monster.
No, it does give people who are one-eyed a chance to.
It'd be the same for Alan Rowland.
Alan Rowland did ref that match.
Yeah, he
did.
Yeah.
Now, I think there might have been a larger gap between when Rowland finished playing and...
It was also his last game as a ref, I think. Or very close to it. It wasn't his last
game. I'd have no objections to Frank Murphy refereeing our next game against Munster, because he did a good job. He's a good referee. But I just think the optics, that's all.
But like Nigel Owens is from the Clonettley area.
He's refed his cousin many times.
Nigel Owens would take umbrage if you were to suggest he was a Clonettley fan. He's a Pontyberrin man.
Okay, but...
And the local clubs in Wales, they wouldn't be fond of one another.
Well, that's the region. He's from the region.
He's from Carmarthenshire or whatever it is.
Yeah, and his cousin plays for the Scarlets. So.
Well, I suppose one thing having Lowe out, it does solve the 3 into 2
it's the
rule.
only good thing about it,
So we know Fardy is going to play, and Gibson Park, whether he starts or not, he's definitely going to be on the bench.
Yeah,
I think Nick McCarthy being out injured is. I think he would have been on the bench, or whether vying for.
He might have won that position, that 2 out of 3. He might have won one of those slots himself.
Anyway, yeah.
I'd suggest I'd agree with that.
And obviously, if Toner is going to be out, then Fardy was going to play anyway. So
I think Fardy's going to play anyway.
Yeah. Where though?
Yeah, well, if Toner's out, he plays in the second row. If Toner's in, he plays in the back row.
We'll have to see. I believe Dan Levy didn't train today.
Did he not?
So. Don't know what that means.
We don't know if he trained or not. He's just not pictured in the pictures.
That's true.
There's a very big difference.
That's true. Or maybe there's a picture of him on the sideline. I don't know. I just gone on what somebody said.
I would start Vardy anyway. You need it. You need that kind of thing for a game like this. Somebody who will do the kind of thing he did in Munster and get away with it. Unlike the others who didn't get away with them. He knows how to get away with it.
Yeah.
Well, he was lucky, I thought.
He was very lucky, yeah.
But he's often lucky.
But I just think that he was lucky that it happened when it happened. Right. If it happened before,
everything else had happened.
Yeah, that I think he might have been, well, no, you're getting a yellow card for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you can't have a farce situation where there's, like snuff at a funeral kind of thing, like dishing out the yellow cards. But why don't we have a quick chat about some of the other fixtures this weekend? Gloucester host Munster on Friday.
That's a big challenge for Munster. Very big.
It is a big game.
Cipriani's out though, I believe,
yeah.
So
Gloucester lost to Sale recently. Wasn't that no? It wasn't. It was the match before Steve Diamond lost all contact with reality. Again. So I mean, Gloucester have gone through a little rocky phase at the moment.
Yeah, hopefully Munster catch them cold. I mean, Munster have this uncanny knack. If you look at their playing roster for the last 5 seasons or whatever, the cattle haven't been there that they were there in the previous period, but they always manage to claw their way into a European semi-final. They just do. It doesn't matter who's in the jersey. Now, unfortunately, they haven't been beyond that in 10 years, but they seem to be able to play above their ability, if you like to look at it that way, in Europe. So I have a feeling they'll pull it out this week. I'd be more worried about it in the following week.
If there's one phrase you could never ever use about a Munster team, it's mentally weak.
No.
Remember we used to make that joke about Ospreys, and they looked at Ospreys were a decent Pro 12 team, but they looked themselves in the mirror and saw themselves as European champions, but they were never quite able to live up to that. Munster are kind of the opposite in a way, because they look at themselves in the mirror and see themselves as European champions, and kind of are able to live up to that reflection. They convince themselves both mentally and physically, which is the difference between themselves and Ospreys. Ospreys are never quite able to convince themselves physically, whereas Munster can. I mean, that Munster team is not a patch on the Munster teams that won European Cups. It's
even the one in 13 with Paul O'Connell and Ron O'Gara on his last season, I think it was, where they got to the game against Clermont. I think.
Toulon in Marseille, was it?
I thought it was Clermont. You could be right, but they had no business really playing as well as they did in the game, and they had a chance to win it. Even that was really playing above their ability, and it's like Rog in general. The less talent you believe he has, the more amazing the guy is. And I don't think he has. I think he's plenty of talent. But
to paraphrase a racist, the more you ignore him, the closer he gets.
Well, there you go.
But I mean that Munster team. I mean self-belief. People sometimes do down the element of psychology in sport and how its value, but it's huge. You look at that Munster team, you can see the value of it.
In a serious context.
You could also say that they're delusional.
Yeah, but if you manage to convince yourself and convince enough around you that you're delusional,
that's it.
Then it works. Especially if you convince the opposition.
That's true. Yeah. Ulster take on Racing.
They could do us a huge favour.
Yeah.
If they could, Of course, we have to beat Toulouse as well, which is no class of a given.
Ulster were dreadful.
They were,
but they've rested all
the rest
of
their
their
whole
stars.
team.
Well, here's the thing. I was looking forward to seeing that Ulster team because there was a lot of young players who played under 20s rugby that I was looking to see in the senior team.
There was 5 from the squad that got to the World Cup final, and 7 on the length.
I was looking forward to seeing Hume, Kernahan, Michael Lowry. Now I know he was playing out of position. Rob Little was back. I was looking forward to seeing him. And they stank. They just stank. They really did.
But it looked like they got off the bus and said, "We're going to be beaten here."
Yeah.
Even when, as I mentioned earlier, McFarlane, when he turned around and says, "Oh, it's going to be very tough." Like Leinster score 42 points on average at home. That's just sending out wrong signals. That's saying we don't have a chance here. And
I hope they were keeping their powder dry for this week. That's all I can say.
But very few of those lads are going to feature this week. So.
Of course.
But some of them will.
But that should have been their cup final. That should have been their opportunity to say,
the second string lads.
I mightn't make it onto the starting 15 by God, by the start of next season I will, and I'm going to.
And also I can
back it
afford
up,
to go down swinging because I'm not going to be playing next week, so I can afford to leave it all out there.
The thing is they'll have an entirely, possibly even 2 entirely new front rows.
Yeah.
Back row will be different.
See, Herbst is leaving.
Good.
He's going to be their backup to Marty Moore this week, I would suggest.
No, or Tom O'Toole will be.
Tom O'Toole, yeah.
Yeah, Tom O'Toole's a far better player than Ian Herbst already. Yeah.
And he's on less money.
Herbst,
by all accounts.
Herbst is dreadful. I mean, I was never convinced of him. Never saw the point of him. South Africa who can't scrummage. I mean, what? What is the point of him? I mean, really.
Yeah, and he gets injured a lot too.
So Tom O'Toole's a better option. Eric O'Sullivan's a better option. He's a good option on the other side. So
McCall is out for the season.
Yeah, he's a loss. Yeah.
There was some frightening stat of the amount of Leinster guys in the. I think it was 10 Leinster former Leinster or Leinster Academy fellas in the Ulster squad. Like, that's a hell of a lot.
It's a lot.
It is.
But I mean, they will have a very different team. The only thing is, I mean, a lot of those guys who were crap on Saturday will be on the bench and might be needed. Mm-hmm. That's the problem.
Yeah.
The only thing is, Ulster and Ravenhill are a very different, very different prospect.
Do you remember
Simon and the boys cold?
I can remember they played a match. I think it was the first time Ulster played a match
on
Sunday.
Yeah,
they played Leicester. I think they put 40 or 50 balls.
33-0.
33-0. And Reverend Ian Paisley was out protesting all the rest of it. But the following week they went to Leicester and got the
shit kicked out of them. Yeah.
Like they conceded 30 or 40 points.
Remember Andrew Trimble scored a brilliant try that day.
I can't remember. Yeah. I remember it was lashing rain, I think.
Yeah.
Other fixtures, well, obviously from our point of view, Bath host Wasps. Hard to know who we want to win that one. Maybe Bath. I think I'd prefer Bath to win because
Wasps. Yeah.
Well, the permutations of this game are of our game are that if we beat Toulouse by a point and they don't get 4 tries, then all we need is a win in Wasps. 3-0.
So just an update. According to Andy Crawford, Porter squats 350 kilos.
Oh, nice. That's kind of almost unbelievable, Andy. It's so much.
Yeah.
350 kilos, like that's a third of a ton. A third of a ton.
Andy may well be exaggerating.
I've driven cars that are
100 million times. Andy, stop exaggerating.
It's the first time Andrews are famous for anything.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Well, it's a hockey school, so
it is. Yeah. I mean, they had Greg Jones on the Ulster team last week.
Right.
As well.
That's right. Yeah.
Who was one of their better players, it must be said.
Mm-hmm.
Carry on.
Yeah, sorry. Just one other fixture that I think will be Leon Sarries. I mean, Sarries seem to be coming good. They look like they're going to be very close to challenging again this year.
Yeah.
So little chance that Sarries are going to lose this game. So little chance. I mean, I know they fell apart at this very point in the season.
Is Billy Gulapala injured again?
And they had to play Claremont behind doors because of snow or something.
Yes, that's right. That's exactly what happened.
They got hockeyed, and then they got hockeyed again. And they ended up in an away quarter final against some randomers, Leinster or something, and they got
Castra or Claremont. I watched that game because it was played on a Monday at 3:30, and the advantage of working from home is you can watch that game. And Claremont absolutely destroyed them. Unbelievable. It was the least Saracens-like performance I've ever seen in my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, a lot of their game seems to be based around Vunipolas. For a team that
is he out?
I'm not sure. I thought I saw that. But for a team that's the team of all the talents and is so process based, a lot like Leinster in a way, is very. They seem to react very badly to the loss of those 2 guys.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to affect them disproportionately. Than the loss of maybe a Johnny Sexton would, but we've lost Johnny Sexton for big matches before and got over it. That seems to affect them disproportionately.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure why it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, he is a serious player for them.
Oh, absolutely.
And you've got to put 2 men on him, 3 men on him every time he gets the ball. So he takes a lot of people out of the game, and he runs through people for fun as well. So he's got good hands, Do
you have a few questions, Dave?
I do, Jason. I do.
Viewers
I had 1 or 2
listeners.
I had 1 or 2 of the listeners. Declan Corcoran says Corby slotted back slotted into full-back for Munster against Connacht. I presume this invalidates his fly-half contract with Munster and means we get him back by default. And clearly the only solution to Leinster's injuries and suspension this weekend is to slot Nugget into his natural position of 11, giving game time to Tracy and Bernard Hooker.
He's at 12.
Yeah, he's
how
gonna
many
play 12.
times? He's
He's
at 12.
Being serious, I thought he was serious. Welcome back. A quick run through the past few fixtures would be nice to hear. I hope you enjoyed it. And there are just too many talking points to pick out just one or two. But we tried to do our best there. And Andy Crawford, he of the making up bench press stats or whatever you call them. I don't know. I don't do gyms.
Squats.
Yeah. The only time you get me in a gym is if they have a nice bakery. Andy Crawford says, losing to Munster, we put in an ill-disciplined and narky display not helped by our skipper. I felt that Issa would have calmed things down and got the lads focused on that situation. Does Johnny have what it takes to be Leinster captain? Issa is an exceptional example of pretty much everything.
Yeah.
You know, you can use Issa as an example of everything. But at the end of the day, there's only one Issa, and he's a once-in-a-lifetime player.
You think back to, say, the captain that was, or he's the current coach, but when he was the captain, like lifted the trophy 3 times, he was such a calm influence on that team. You know what I mean? I don't think I ever saw him. He might have thrown a few digs, but he did it kind of in a very nonchalant way,
amicable way.
Like he wasn't.
Would you mind if I gave you a dig in the ribs, chap?
But like, you know, he didn't seem to get flustered, and he certainly wasn't roaring and shouting in referees' faces or.
But as we said before, he grew up in the school of city buggers, you know, so he knows. You know, Leicester would have learned a lot. I mean, everybody says one of the key things that contributed to Leinster's success was the return of Cullen from Leinster, bringing some of that street nous with him.
Yeah,
but I think it was more. I wasn't there, but I mean, it might have been sort of the hardness that they had. Like their
for sure.
Monday morning training sessions were legendary. They used to just open fire at each other. Yeah. So maybe they brought some of that. I mean, I'm not saying like, but then again, who knows? That could have well been happening at Leinster at the time.
Yeah,
you know, we don't know.
We had one more question from Colin.
Too busy patting each other on the arse.
Yeah. We have one more question from Colin Meehan, who asks, if Cian Kelleher returns to Leinster, as rumoured, which we've seen rumoured in around the place, who leaves? Firstly,
is he coming back?
I'm not sure there's any great benefit to anyone involved if he comes back.
And B, why does anyone have to leave? I mean, at the moment, he's a certain starter for a very good Connacht team. Which means he's getting game time, which means he's in the. Fadi and Loken and Healy are both fit. Does he get on the field?
I think at this stage he does. Yeah, yeah, I think he does. I think he's kind of. I mean, Adi Loken has suffered a bit of form loss as well. So I don't know. It's 2 from 3, which is not what he'd be in Leinster.
That's possibly true. His
brother's closer to a starter in Connacht.
I mean,
his brother's still in the academy here.
Yeah, you've got Barry Daly, Ferg, James Lowe, Dave Carney, Tamani, Larmer, if he's seen that way. Then that's without talking about guys like Jimmy O'Brien or Hugo Keenan.
Coming up on the
outside. So, I mean, he's probably better staying in Munster. I mean, if he had the choice, if I were him, I'd advise him to stay in Connacht.
But like, he was kind of the next big thing, wasn't he? When he left school, he was, you know, and there was a lot of kind of gnashing of teeth when he
I remember seeing him playing for the A's, and he was fairly unplayable, and I was my name for him was Cian can't pass, won't pass, doesn't really need to pass actually because he keeps scoring, and you know, I don't think he got past that mindset maybe. I don't know, I really don't know, but he it took him a while at Connacht to get through. I think he had injuries and a few things like that. So we'll have to see. I don't know if there's any truth in the rumours for a start.
If he's,
could be a kite he's flying to get more money off.
As it stands, he's in the national coach's eye because he's starting. If he comes back to Leinster, is he going to be starting?
Be an I team, perhaps.
Huh?
Could be an I team or whatever it's called these days.
Yeah, no, you see, that's the thing. I mean, there's a lot of players there, some who are younger than him, you know, and don't. So, I would from his own professional career, maybe he wants to come back and give it another go, you know. But, I mean, it didn't work for Fionn Carr.
No, he went back and forward a few times.
Yeah, Fionn Carr went to Connacht and scored every try God knows known to man, of every sort, from everywhere. He scored all sorts. Then came back to Leinster, and, you know, there's a bit of a difference. I mean, Leinster are on a different level to Connacht, you know. Yeah,
there's a bit of that. There's a few things, I suppose. He probably had more free reign in Connacht. He had more games in Connacht. He had, you know, it's hard to put a run together in Leinster if you don't, you know, because there's so many good players that come back, internationals that come back, all that kind of stuff. It's very hard as a guy at kind of who's neither in the academy nor an international. It's very hard for them to get a consistent run of games, which a lot of players need to kick on. You know, so if your kind of career is kind of stalling a bit, you're in a vicious circle where you can't get the games to show what you can do, because you know, and then because you can't get that, you don't never get the form going, and because of that, you're in a spiral there that's going nowhere, because the guy next to you is champing at the bit to get in ahead of you, and if he does, you can't get him out.
I mean, it's not quite the stage of where you have to rip the jersey off the next guy's back, but it is quite Darwinian in the Leinster squad. It would have to be, you know,
in a good way.
Yeah,
big time. Yeah. Just one other point, Dave. We saw a link that Murdo sent earlier, just in relation to an article from the Irish Times, just in relation to the powers that be of the ERC, or whatever it's called now. EPRC want to reduce the number of first round or pool matches from 6 to 4.
Yeah.
The electrics on my old Jag were more reliable than the top processors of the EPRC. These are guys who spent a king's ransom and caused huge upheaval across the entire rugby of Europe just to add one letter to their domain name. I mean, that's all they did. They made a lot of money for some estate agents in Switzerland, and they added one letter to the domain name. Because what are we looking forward to on Saturday?
They killed European rugby for the Italians.
Yeah. What are we looking forward to on Saturday? The Heineken Cup. You know, so I wouldn't put too much faith. I mean, they might do it, but it won't work.
Well, in some respects, though, I do not think that they have been. You know, they've got they've managed somehow to break away from the union's stranglehold of the Pro 14, right? Insofar as that everyone had a little piece of the pie, and Ireland will get 3 teams, and Wales will get 4 or 3 or whatever. And do you know what I mean? There was a guaranteed. Now at least there's a level of.
It's just the leagues.
It's just the league, and your position on how you finish depends on whether or not you qualify.
But that's what they wanted all along.
No. But it's not what the unions wanted here.
But
exactly.
Ultimately, what they did.
But that's what I'm saying.
It's what the Premiership and the top 14 wanted.
That's a good thing for the league. It makes the league more.
What they did was they knocked out the country, the rugby playing country with the largest population in Europe, out of the competition.
Well,
they're nearly back in. They're very close to being back in.
It's up to Treviso and Zebre.
It is
to strengthen their team.
Oh, it absolutely is.
They've been in the Six Nations since the year 2000. So they've had. This will be their 19th. 20th
but
season.
If you're looking for brand partners, 5 additional brand partners.
But hold on,
right, so just
we're not seeing the Fiats and the Maserati.
If you were looking for 5 additional brand partners, are they more likely to join a league with 150 million? Well, let me say that 60-40. That's 100. Are they more likely to join a league with 175 million people or 105 million people?
Can I just say one thing to you, Dave? Like, that's all well and good. I was in Rome over New Year's. And I went into, there was an Irish pub at the end of our road, and I went in to see if they'd put on the rugby. And the guy looked at me with 2 heads. The rugby? What is this rugby?
You could say the same about Birmingham.
Well,
you know,
hold on. But
second largest city in Britain.
Not in an Irish pub. No, not at all. Like
Birmingham's the second largest city.
Yes, it is absolutely. But there's a big rugby. There's a big interest in the Midlands in England. They hadn't a clue, and your man was flicking through it. And he didn't write. Now he actually hit. You could see there was a logo for the Pro 14, but your man went through it because he'd never heard of the Pro 14, even though it's Guinness and it was really an Irish pub. It was no more an Irish pub. It was just the name of an Irish pub. But
which one was it? The Trinity or the Scholars Lounge?
No, I can't remember what the name was now. Anyway, but as your man was going through, so I just kind of said, you know what, it's okay, no worries. I'll look at it on a link on my phone. But the point is that they can, you know. Fiat or whoever or whatever sponsor will say, oh, we're going to open ourselves up to the Italian market. The reality of it is, even in an Irish bar in Rome, there was no one watching, and the pub was quite full on a Saturday night. But all the tellies, and they must add 10, 15 tellies, and they were all showing football.
The other thing, we're first to talk about Fiat. When Heineken's last deal for the original Heineken Cup was up for renewal, Fiat went really big on it, and Heineken actually overpaid to retain the sponsorship. Fiat were really strong into it for that time, so there is an interest amongst blue chip Italian companies, because I mean rugby in Italy is very strong in the north of Italy, which is where all the ABC Ones live. So,
but is it though?
But,
like 4,000 or 5,000 went to see their derby. Do you know, like Leinster could bring over, and like, you know, Sexton. Remember Sexton got a drop goal. Like we would have played, we would have been the European champions. Remember he got a drop goal to get us to. So like if you're playing Sexton, at the time that we were the European champions. Now I don't know whether O'Driscoll was playing or Isa, but do you know what I mean? There would have been a relatively strong side would have gone out that day, and yet they never really. It's not like there's tons of people going through the turnstiles.
But do you think that excluding that country from elite level, the elite club level rugby, did more to raise the profile or lower the profile of the game?
Of course, lowered. Yeah. But hold on, they were in the Heineken Cup for how many years? Probably, since the year 2000. They were probably in it before, or since they joined the Pro 12. So for 5 or 6 years, and then they were in it before that as well, and they did very little in it. So you can't keep propping them up and saying we're going to subsidise you until you become good. You have to say start getting good and then you can qualify for it on your own.
Yeah,
like their subsidy is it being allowed into the Pro 14.
But they paid for entry into the Pro 14.
Exactly,
they paid quite handsomely
Absolutely.
for it. But I still think that basically that's all. But to just go back to the EPRC, which is my original point, all they did was they spent a king's ransom, upheaved rugby in Europe for 4 or 5 years, just to add one letter to the domain name. They did nothing else. Nobody's making any more money out of it than before. We don't have any more sponsors than before. We have the same name sponsor as before. The only thing is that they did was they changed the domain name and moved to Switzerland. The competition has Leinster are still champions. Munster are still there and thereabouts. There's always one English team and one French team. Nothing has changed.
This is coming from the CVC takeover of Premiership Rugby. That's started a lot of this. There's a brilliant article now, of course, it's the Daily Mail.
Yeah, so
it's not really brilliant, but yeah. But the headline is Rugby at War, and it's about
Peter Fitzsimons. Remember Peter Fitzsimons used to play for Australia.
In a move,
I think he'll be suing because he wrote a book called Rugby at War because he worked for Kerry Packer.
Yes, there's a great documentary on that.
Yeah. That was based on his book. It was called Rugby at War. Anyway, carry on.
In a move that is a bit like saying, if you don't ride me, I'm going to chop me Mickey off. The Premiership are allegedly saying they're going to split from the RFU if they don't let them put relegation to bed and bring their team up from the Championship. Like, that's what a negotiating, like, it's the Daily Mail, so it's bullshit probably, but what a brilliant negotiating tactic. Well, look, we're going to cut away from you and World Rugby and everybody else and play our own bloody game unless you let us get rid of this.
Which we won't be able to call Rugby Union, and we'd probably lose most of our players because they want to play international rugby and won't play for a breakaway league. It's crazy stuff.
You're getting where I'm saying it's like trying to chop your Mickey off?
It is. But I mean, that's the thought process of these guys is not. I mean, McCafferty is never going to be required as a brain donor. He lost a huge amount of money for the Premiership in an investment called RIM in America, which the idea was to bring elite level Premiership games to America and invest in pro rugby over there and stuff like that. He lost a fortune on it. Eventually, had to be bailed out by USA Rugby, just so they had enough money to run the San Francisco Sevens last year, because San Francisco Sevens was going into 2 weeks before the tournament and didn't have enough money to pay their costs.
Electricity bill.
Yeah. So I mean, this guy's a crazy loon.
I don't even know if he's still involved, but you know,
he's still the chairman of the PRL. But the thing is, I mean, the CVC deal looks great, and they all get, I think they all got 14 million each. Or if you beg them not to use it to pay down debt. So of course, the first thing they did was they all used it to pay down debt, and then next season they have 27% less revenue.
It's like borrowing money out of your pension,
and a lot of interviews were done with guys involved in Formula One, who CVC had previously owned, and the head of Force India. Now Formula One is, I mean, some of the team owners can be quite talky at the best times. Anyway, so they're not ones for stand backwards. But he said that CVC raped the sport. That's the words he used. He said that all they did. Everything they spent no money. They spent as little money as possible and took as much money out as possible.
That's what they're there for.
It's
capitalism.
No, that's what CVC are there for. They're there to make money for their. I mean, it's a venture fund. They're there to make money for their investors. They're not there to make money for Bath or Saracens or whatever. So in order to make 1% more next season, the league has to make 28% more.
But I guess the owners of Saracens must want to get some
to get their 40 million back.
Yeah, no, they do. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. They do need. I mean, debt is only. I mean, I have no doubt. Nigel Ray loves Saracens, right? Absolutely loves them. You can tell. I mean, you don't spend that much money and work that hard when you're at the age he's at if you don't love it. But at the end of the day, having your entire business plan based on one man's love for a club is not sustainable. So it's not. It's just not sustainable. Because people die, or people change their interests, or people lose their jobs. You know, it's just not.
Well, isn't it like that guy from Cast?
Yeah,
that's exactly what I was thinking.
Pierre Fabre.
Castle, yeah, and then
or Guzzini at Stade Francais.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like Heidelberg. Everybody's talking about, Heidelberg, why don't we let a German team into the championship and blah, blah, blah. And German rugby is the next big thing. We should bring them in and get rid of Italy in the Six Nations. And then Peter Wilde bought Stade Francais, lost all interest in German rugby. And now Germany went into the last... Germany went into the last Rugby World Cup playoff match without being able to pay their players.
QED.
Because, you know, if you're dependent on one man, and that's the problem I think that a lot of English clubs face, that they are kind of dependent on a club owner. And if he loses interest, like Bristol, it happened to Bristol originally, if you remember.
Shoguns.
If that guy kind of decides to step back, then you're in trouble.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks very much, boys, and thank you very much for watching. Cheers.